Let's return to This Week in America. Here's your host, Rick Bratton.
Welcome back, everybody, coast to coast, This Week in America. Tim Segrest is 44 years old, growing up in California, plenty of time at the beach. Joined the military in 1983, retired in 2004 as a disabled veteran. He was diagnosed in 1997 with degenerative spine diseases, also diagnosed with acute PTSD and a heart condition, now residing in Arizona. He writes to express his feelings as he battles the pain and PTSD conditions. Tim hopes that his books of poems, Perfect Flaws, dedicated to the other veterans and their families, will help others to find personal self-healing as he has done. Tim Segrest has authored many poetry books, including Perfect Flaws, dedicated to other veterans and their families, and he's with us on This Week in America. Tim, welcome to the program. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
It is our pleasure, and this is such an important topic, and the time will go by way too quickly, but we can direct people to the right places to get some help. And for you, poetry has been a big part of that. Talk about when and how you got started writing, in particular poetry.
Well, it's kind of a gruesome story. I had, back in '03 when I was going to get out of the service, I was already feeling some of the PTSD symptoms, and I kind of got my friend's .45 automatic and took it in one hand and had pen and paper in the other, because I had written 2 poems before that day, and I felt really good about the poems that I wrote. And I was going to make a choice. I was going to use a .45 in my head, or I was going to start writing poems full time. And I chose to write the poems.
And so grateful for that on so many levels. You've touched so many people by sharing your story, what you went through and how you got through and continue to get through all of the issues we'll talk about on the program today that you address in the book, Perfect Flaws, dedicated to other veterans and their families. What inspired you to write the book?
Well, it's a way that I can write my feelings on paper and kind of like close the page on the book. And at least for a brief time, sometimes minutes, sometimes hours, I feel away from the words. It kind of closes everything off. And initially, I had written the first couple of poetry books. I didn't mean for them to be even published, but I was writing for myself. And my daughter talked me into publishing them with the hope that they would help other pets. So that's how. So I submitted it to Author House, and it got accepted and it got published.
And the book is available at the usual places, including authorhouse.com. If you go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us, you can link on to all of the various outlets for books written by Tim, including Perfect Flaws, dedicated to other veterans and their families. What do you hope to accomplish in writing the book? This is an outreach to so many people that are hurting. What do you hope to accomplish? What are your goals?
Well, I hope to help other veterans realize that whatever they went through, how horrendous and hideous it may be, that there are other people that went through it as well. And you need to find an outlet that you can use. And I don't care whether it's writing, finger painting, sculptor, whatever it is, but you need to find an outlet to express it and get the feelings out there. And so you can deal with them, because if you don't deal with them, they're going to eat you up.
I know you've talked about medication, and you can't rely on medication. You need something else. Talk about that, because that's very simple. You have these problems. We're going to give you this medication. This should take care of the problems. It doesn't really work that way, though, does it?
No. Medication will take the edge off. It will help in some ways, but the root of the problem is so deep within a person that you really need to psychologically deal with it in some way to fight the demons. Otherwise, like I said, they will come back and haunt you. So you can't rely on the medication alone. You have to do a little bit of work to face the demons and fight them. It's hard, but you got to do it.
How difficult was it for you to find the other outlet? In your case is poetry, and you say poetry may not be for everybody, as you just mentioned, finger painting or other things that you can do. How difficult was it for you to find poetry as that outlet that you needed to really help you get through these periods?
Well, for me, it was relatively easy. Like I said, I just wrote 2 poems that day, and I felt really good about when I wrote them. And but it is difficult. Um, but it's probably the most important thing you can do to deal with the PTSD stuff. You know, to find that outlet. It's really, really important. And it might be difficult because, you know, you may be in a situation, whether it be personal or geographically, where you can't do things, but you need to find something.
Tim's book is available at Amazon, the usual places, authorhouse.com as well. It's Perfect Flaws, dedicated to other veterans and their families. And I was going to ask about the target market, who this was designed for. Obviously designed for veterans, but this is really a resource for families as well. You have it in the subtitle of the book. This is very important, not just for those who suffer, but those who are family members or even friends of people suffering.
Well, yeah, because PTSD it's a family disease. The things that you go through, the isolation, the depression, the fatigue, the lashing out, the anger, affects everybody around you. I mean, imagine your wife, you coming out, and the worst thing you can do is isolate yourself. But for her to be able to know how to handle it when you do want to do it, it's something that needs to be learned. It's nothing that she's going to know. So if she can feel or know a little bit of what you're feeling, then she can hopefully learn about it and help you in the process. But it's and friends included. If you got a real close friend, if you're not married, they're acting more or less like a surrogate wife at that point. They can help you too, and they need to know about it.
With the book, it's done so much good for so many people, including yourself, in writing this. Do you ever plan to stop writing? I'm assuming this is an ongoing process for you as well.
No, if I ever stop writing, I'll probably end up dying. It's very important that I do. I write 3 or 4 poems, sometimes a day, and what I do is I get these poems, I put them all in the book, and I get up to 250 pages of poetry and short stories, because I do short stories as well. And I put them together in books, and I label them snake riddle books. And I have A through the alphabet, and I've just started A1 the other day. So I have 26 of these books. So I have a lot of poems that are still not out there yet. They're in the process because I'm self-publishing through KDP now. So they're getting out there. I've got, I think, A through G, or 1 through 7 of snake riddles, snake riddle poetry and short stories. That's my other book, and on 1 through 7. So I have a lot of poetry and short stories that are still coming out.
What is the next step in your writing? It sounds like you have plenty of material. It's just a question of getting them published and getting them out there in the public hands so they can benefit others.
Well, I imagine keep writing, keep publishing through KDP, self-publishing. I would love to get a regular publisher to where I got a little more freedom. Excuse me. But financially, it's kind of tight right now. It's for me and a lot of people. So I have to kind of use the self-publishing, but um, just keep on going, keep my head to the grindstone.
With us on This Week in America is Tim Segrest. That's Segrest. Perfect Flaws, Dedicated to Other Veterans and Their Families is the name of this particular book of poetry. Several others that Tim has written. You'll get all that information by going to Amazon, going to authorhouse.com, and you can link on by going to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. You address a number of topics. Talk about how you select the topics that you address in your book.
Well, a lot of it's things that pop up. See, my mind always works. Even when I try to go to sleep, my mind is working. And I remember stuff I see on TV, stuff I see out driving around, may trigger a memory, hopefully not a flashback, but a memory. And it comes to light, and the words, the poetry, or the short story would just start to flow in. And I start with a couple of words and just let it go from there.
Tim Segrest with us on the program talking about his book, Perfect Flaws, Dedicated to Other Veterans and Their Families. Let's talk about the PTSD symptoms. How do they work with your writing? Explain that whole approach.
Well, it kind of helps, oddly, in a sort of way, because there are a lot of people that can't talk about war stuff, and I have the ability to write about it. So the hypervigilance, or being hypervigilant about something, is a common PTSD symptom. So that helps me in my writing. Because once I get a story or poem in my head, I really have to get it down and get it out on paper as soon as I can, because it will bug me the whole day if I don't. And just being able to remember things, because once again, vivid remembering is, I think, another part of PTSD, at least is for me. And I can remember very vivid things in such a way that I can pinpoint certain feelings or emotions that I may not have had back then, but I have now.
Yes.
And I can use that to kind of connect it to.
You said something that was very interesting. You have memories and not necessarily flashbacks in a particular set of circumstances. What is the difference between the two? Because I'm thinking about this as you're talking. They are two distinct things happening there, memory and flashback. For an outsider, someone not dealing with it, explain what the difference is.
Well, a flashback is the memory that more or less comes to life. Everything around you you hear the sounds, you remember the things, people that were there, explosions, guns firing, things that put you in a panic state. You're actually reliving the dream. And I had one case where I had flashback, and there was 3 seconds, about 3 to 5 seconds of time that I could not account for after the flashback came, and it was over with. And for that 3 to 5 seconds, I had no idea what happened. So the flashbacks are very vivid, and you actually take on what's going on in the memory.
With PTSD, is this something that eventually goes away, or something that hopefully you're able to control, something you have to live with, but you try to control it?
Yeah, unfortunately, it never goes away. I know a lot of people may be upset when I say that, but the truth is it never goes away. Yes, you can control it. You can do things to modify certain triggers that you get. Um, but that's about the best you're going to achieve. And to hope for a cure to where you don't have to worry about triggers or worry about flashbacks or worry about everyday living just isn't there.
With us on the program, Tim Segrest, author of Perfect Flaws, dedicated to other veterans and their families. In the book, one of the poems I'm going to pull from it here, it's "Life gets me down, my mind grows weary. I think about my death and dying. Better to write when feel like crying." Is that a common emotion?
Yeah, a lot of people say, well, I don't cry, and if that's what it takes to let it out, you have to cry. Um, I cry, and I hate to admit it, but men do cry. And if that's what it takes to let the feeling out, then that's what you got to do.
Or in your case, writing, and you've also said this thought soon ends and another starts, like an actor never knowing his part. And I like that line. That's brilliant because that really, in just a few words, says so much what's going on in your mind and this changing voice in your mind. Talk about that. And again, is that something you could control, or you have these thoughts and you just have to figure out how you're going to deal with those at the time?
Yeah, that's about it. Because you never know what part you're going to have to play. Um, it's an emotion or feeling, and one day you may have to step back from a situation. Other days you may have to step into it a little bit and deal with it.
Yes.
So you just don't know.
What's it like in writing these poems and getting out there and getting the message out there? This book, again, dedicated to other veterans and their families, knowing there could be others like you that are sitting there with a gun in one hand and really contemplating ending it all. And because of your words, they decide to set that gun down and take a different approach. What does that feel like for you?
It's like being reborn again. I've always said, if I can help just one vet, then that would make all this worth it. Because there's so many that need help. And I think this national statistic is like 23 a day of vets commit suicide. And if I could just get down that to 21 to 20, I'd be happy.
And what's alarming with that, it's alarming unto itself, but the fact that really I don't think it's going down a whole lot over the years. Despite all of this talk, we still see that in that 23 category of veterans' suicides a day. A minute or so left in the program. You've got the video, Gargoyle 2012. Talk about how that all came to happen.
Well, I wrote a screenplay, and I was going to do it on stage. Well, we couldn't get the logistics to get it. And one of the actors had a friend who did the YouTube videos. So he asked me if he could take some of my work and try to get it out there and put it on video, and he did. And it's 20 minutes long, and it's quite powerful.
But we encourage people to look at for that. And if you're looking, Tim Segrest is Segrest. The book is of poetry. This one is Perfect Flaws, dedicated to other veterans and their families. I say this one because there are other books that Tim has written. Tim, it's been a pleasure having you on the program today, being able to share your message, get that out there, that very important message to other people. I know it's difficult to go through and to relive and to talk about this situation time and time again, but I think you've touched a lot of people. I'm sure you have on the program today. Thank you for taking the time to be with us on the show.
Well, thank you very much, and I hope I've reached some people. And to those that are listening, with PTSD, just hang in there, brothers. I guess it does get better. It does get better.
And Tim's book available at Amazon, authorhouse.com. Go to our website, thisweekinamerica.us. You can link on to all those outlets for the book. Once again, our guest, Tim Segrest. The book is Perfect Flaws, dedicated to other veterans and their families. Information on our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Back on today's program after these messages.
This Week in America is online. You can visit our website, thisweekinamerica.us. Scott Pinkerton, Associate Producer of This Week in America. Jay Anderson, Segment Producer. Ben Watson, Webmaster. Otto Bechet, Director of Engineering and TV Production. This Week in America produced and is a trademark of Blue Funk Broadcasting, LLC. For information on all of our guests and to listen to this week's show, our website again at thisweekinamerica.us. And I'm Sean Bratton, Executive Producer of This Week in America.